Hello and welcome to the United Devil with me, JB. This is the morning after, well, the night before, but it's the morning after the morning before. Hope we're all doing really well today, 27th of July 2025, Sunday. So, is it Sunday? No, it is Sunday. Yeah, watching the West Ham game last night, pre-season tour game. We can get into that, of course we can. First and most importantly, I hope we're all doing really well this morning. I don't know if you watched. I know some of you did jump on. I'm really grateful for you to get in the comments if you saw the match last night. I'd love to know early doors what you thought about it, what you thought about the first half, what you thought about the players from the first half. I got some thoughts on that. I think this is going to be a good one for me anyway, to see how we all watch football. And again, like I always say here, we can agree to disagree. I love this chat. There are so many amazing legends of this chat already that I think we all share a common goal. Like I say, feel free to get into the chat. Obviously, one of the things I always ask is be respectful of each other. More importantly, in the chat, we've all got our views and opinions. I'm not a dictator here. I want you to get your chats in. You know, if we don't agree, then for me, that's almost perfect, because I think it's all about debate. I think it's all about us getting our opinions in, but as long as we're all respectful, I certainly will respect your opinion. Doesn't mean that we have to agree. Of course, we don't have to agree on our opinions, but I like different opinions because it sparks debate. It makes me think. Not saying I'm going to change my views, but I think it's always good to consume as many different viewpoints as we possibly can. Just get into the chat, say hi, give a thumbs up, always give a like on videos. It's free. You know, it definitely helps the channel out, and you are most welcome here. So start off this morning. I'm not going to start off with this, but there's obviously on the thumbnail. We've got Sesko on there, and basically my question is new striker target, and we can get into what happened this morning, and it obviously in regards to the striker situation. So West Ham, I would have loved to have jumped on just after, but again it was late and I was tired. So let's get into that West Ham game. So the first thing to say, I'm going to temper this with, and I need to be fair and balanced on this. So I'm going to say that I'm not going to get carried away with this morning, because ultimately there is a pre-season game, and just as I was critical against Leeds, I'm positive against West Ham, but I'm still need to temper this with it is pre-season. But I did say I wanted to see patterns of play. I wanted to see something, an improvement in the team, and that's exactly what we got. It was really nice to see kind of starting a formation, just kind of seeing what we're doing. Was it perfect? No. Is it a step forward? I think it's a step forward. Lots of really good performances in the team. I thought Ugarte for me was the man of the match, and the reason for me why he was because I thought in that central position he's very calm. I thought his distribution of the ball when he got it was fantastic. He broke up play. Even things like when he's playing in that meter squared box, he owned that very, very strong. The times where he would back into a midfield player and he would get that ball very, very strong and then pass that ball out, breaking up play. So I thought for me, Ugarte, it was a much better performance, quite accomplished. I definitely think he looked better, but again, need to pivot this whereby that was I'm going to yawn today. Sorry about this. A West Ham team that I think clearly behind in their pre-season compared to us, but it was still a good test. Mainu, started to see glimpses of Mainu, what he was like the season before last. I thought he was immense. I thought he was really, really good. Him and Ugarte, I thought worked really well in that pivot. Mainu was, you could clearly see Ugarte was in that number 6 role, kind of sitting in front of that back four, mopping it up, breaking up that play, not getting forward too much. But there was there was a offside goal whereby I think Bruno lost it, and God, I just keep yawning now. Sorry. Whereby Ugarte picked it up, did two West Ham midfielders put a beautiful ball through for Ahmad, who first time shot fantastic. So he just played really, really well. Manu very, very strong. I think getting into that box to box time when he was on the floor surrounded by 3-4 players and he picked the ball up, he's so good with the ball at his feet. And Amorin's right when it comes to Manu, and so many of you are right as well, that Manu with the ball at his feet is fantastic. The ball seems to stick to his feet. He was strong, again, I liked what he did. So Manu was great. Ahmad for me didn't really get into the ball, didn't really get onto the ball as much, but when he had a chance, he finished it first time. He always looked lively with the ball, more of a wing back position. I don't know if he's strong enough for a wing back, getting back to defend. I think he's quite lightweight, but he's very low to the ground, and he's definitely more of an attacker. If you get that ball to him, he's so good with the ball to feet, and that's nice to see. Now we've got plays with ball to feet. Dorgu, I thought was good again. Not as good. Don't think stood out as much. Definitely didn't stand out as much. I thought the wing backs did a decent job. Got caught a couple of times positionally. I think Dorgu needs to learn a lot positionally. Heaven, again, good performance. He's still a young kid. West Ham clearly targeted our left-hand side. Targeted that. Inexperienced Heaven. I think Heaven had a good performance. I think the West Ham goal was Souček basically running through the centre of the pitch, and that's not spoken enough. We're still quite weak there, irrespective of that Ugarte performance and mainly performance. I just thought that. Sorry, I'm going to keep you on today. I thought that was one of those kind of Premier League experience goals whereby they see that gap, they run through the gap. No matter how well we play, you're going to get those kind of goals. To Bowen, who basically just did what really good, experienced Premier League forward striker players do. Heaven didn't get close enough, and I think that will come with time. And it was a good finish. So it was that sort of running through our midfield. It didn't happen as much, but in those games whereby you have a load of possession, you're the better team, but they sucker punch you with that, because ultimately they're a Premier League team, and you're going to come up against Liverpool's, Arsenal's, and they're going to do that to you 3 or 4 times a game. Yoro looked good. De Ligt looked really, really good. Bienda in goal. I mean, what was making me laugh is that there was a chance at the end. I can't remember the West Ham player's name, and he basically shot straight at the keeper, and they were trying to make out the save was better than what it was. It was straight at him. He had to save it. I'd be expecting a keeper of any class to save that. So it wasn't. I think he had a better game. His kicking was better. Distribution was slightly better, but we clearly need a new goalkeeper. Fernandes. Oh, let's talk about Fernandes. So, Fernandes, I think this season is going to be very divisive. Gave the ball away quite a lot still. Still very much all over the place in that number 10 role. I still thought he gave the ball away far too much, trying to do too many clever things. He doesn't need to. Frustrated me quite a lot. There was a move that we put together, and really good move from left to right, and came to Fernandes. What was his first thought? Was to shoot from 20 odd yards, and it was just typical of that Fernandes performance. But then he scores 2 goals, and he's. I think we need to accept as a fan base he's not gonna change. He's too old to change. I don't see him in that 8 role. I don't see him in that role. But what is undeniable about Fernandes is that he does make stuff happen and he does score goals. I think his overall play, I don't think is fantastic. It wasn't brilliant, but he scores 2 goals. So he takes a penalty and then his shot from a good Manu pass, and he scores goals. So you know he's going to play. For me, I find him very frustrating. He does some magical stuff, but he's not consistent with it throughout the game. I know his tackling is not particularly good. In that number 10 role, he still wants to play that sort of free, be it everywhere role, and I thought a couple of times he got in people's way, and kind of still learning that position really. But I very frustrating for me. But what cannot be denied is that he gets goals, he gets assists, he gets goals, and I think that's what we're going to get from him. I think he's going to be a very frustrating player. I think he still needs support, and I'm going to support him. But I want to see a different Fernandes this season, but I don't think we are. Cunha, I thought Cunha was fantastic again. Chases down balls. That's one thing I thought we did quite well with the front three was press. Ahmad as well, we're in there. Dorgu. While we press, I thought we tried to get in West Ham early doors. They sort of had an early little sighter, and then we took the ball up the other end with Rasmus. And let's get on to Rasmus as well. Rasmus for me, I feel sorry for him in some respects because we kept trying to put the ball over the top to Rasmus, and he does have some pace, but bearing in mind West Ham pre-season wise, they're not at it, and he's just quicker than their back four, and he runs down the channels and he works hard, but Rasmus is lacking something. Maybe he was asked to run down the channels, but there was a couple of times where he ran to the left channel or to the right channel, and there was nobody in the box. So even if he got the ball in those channels or in those spaces, I don't see where he's going to go with it. I don't see what he's going to do. I don't see what the plan is for that. There is nobody in the box. Thought it was slightly better trying to get balls into the box, but Rasmus doesn't seem to make those intelligent runs. For me, Rasmus was just not. He just doesn't have it, and he works hard. Rasmus works hard, and you can clearly see that Rasmus works hard, and he tries really, really hard. But Rasmus, for me, is just not. He's just not that guy. I think he could learn. He needs somebody to learn from, but he's just not. He's not a £62 million striker. With Rasmus up front, we're not going to. I just don't think he's going to get the goals that we need. And so far from pre-season, yeah, he works hard, but he just doesn't. He just doesn't look like that striker for me. He just doesn't look like that world-class striker is going to get you the goals. He just doesn't look like that sort of striker that we need, or we need more than Rasmus, and that's where we are on that. So I thought first half that we pressed well, much better. Patterns of play wise, I thought that we did. I thought that we did well, so I'm just getting through something here. Just sorting that out there. I've got a light this morning already. Thank you for those who have tuned in. So I thought that we were good. I thought we were much better. I'm not going to over-egg the pudding. I think now that what you're going to get is you're going to get these Glazer supporters in your supporters who are going to say, oh, we and this is my fear is now, well, we're going to get spin, oh, we don't need players. You look at those performances, do we need a striker? Do we need a player? We've still got one player come in So Mbermo didn't play, and him not playing for me was the epitome of why we still need to be on at this club, because we've got one player. Xerxes wasn't there either. You know, we got one player who didn't play. We spent 7 weeks trying to get this player in, and effectively he didn't play. So we spent 65 mil on a player who's not played because he's not fit enough to play. And this is the problem now. This is, and I'm going to refer back to this, for Ornstein saying that, you know, we're ahead of some other teams, and you know we're doing well, and we're still trying to do this. It's as much as the win was nice, and it's always great. The next day we still need to be realistic about. We're still playing West Ham, who are behind us in a friendly game. I know a couple of teams around us, Liverpool lost, etc., but we can't judge on that. What we need to judge on is the here and now, and I do think it is still. I think it's disgusting that we've got one player in who's played for pre-season, and Burmo's not fit enough, and that's all we've got. And we're going. I think somebody summed it up in the chat. I think it was Chief Herb in the chat who basically said that there's lots of optimism this season, and that's what we're going to go into. We've been spun around, and we've been led to believe that we're going to sign lots of players. But ultimately, we've signed 2 players. One of them is not fit, and the other one can just barely make it into the squad. And what for me confounds this is the second half. So second half change for world-class Luke Shaw. The United TV, because that's what it was on, were waxing about how Casemiro looks fighting fit and trim, which I think is embarrassing. And the second half team, nah, I meant when you watch a game, there are certain teams and players that you just turn off at, and the whole of that second half for me, those players that came on, the intensity completely dropped, the quality dropped, and if that's what we're going to go into the season with, I really worry about the season, because we have no depth. Mason Mount come on in that number 7 shirt. I think it's a disgrace that he's in that shirt. You know, he's clearly not at it. You know, I don't see where Mason Mount gets into this team unless we've got injuries. Maguire, steady Eddie. You know, Maguire I thought was probably the best player in the second half, which tells you a lot. I thought he was steady, mopped up the back four. You know, nobody covered themselves in glory. They had 25 minutes. You know, Obi, you know, what can he do? You know, that second half performance for me is basically what we did all of last season. You know, though this is pre-season, your chance to shine, pre-season game, but this is where you start to shine. Collier, I didn't see anything from him. You know, I very disappointed. So from about 65 minutes, I confess I completely turned off. West Ham looked the more likely to get an equaliser to score. Second half, if West Ham had scored or won that, I personally wouldn't have really cared, because it was all about that first 65, and I was reasonably impressed by that. But what is abundantly clear after watching that game is that we need signings, and I really don't know what we're going to do for that. So feel free to get your chats in. I'd love to know what you thought about the game. You know, are you optimistic already? Are you jumping on the bandwagon? You know, we're going to do well based on West Ham performance. I mean, I'm of the opinion that we need more than that. We're going to be spun around based on that performance. You know, I think we need to be really careful about how they sell this to us. You know, we're looking to glow up these players. That's what I think. We do need a goalkeeper. We need another midfielder in there and a striker. That's not good enough. It really isn't. We need 2 strikers in there, but that's where we're at. So that's a segue into Sesko. So why do I think we just need... I think we need to go all out and go for Sesko. The reason for that is Ollie Watkins is going to be very expensive, and Aston Villa don't particularly want to sell, and not for 60 million. For me, I'm resigned to the fact now, whatever happens, we're going to go into first game of the season without a striker, without another midfielder, and without a goalkeeper. As we saw, Mbama didn't play, and how are they supposed to come into this group of players, new players, without a pre-season? So it's going to take a while for them to come in. So Sesko for me, I think logically now, I sort of shift between Watkins, Sesko. Whoever the striker is, they're not going to be ready for the start of the season. Watkins probably would be the one who's ready-made to come in, because he knows the Premier League, he knows how to score goals, and for me, if you were going to get one that you wanted ready-made, who could come in, probably still start against Arsenal. He might be unfit, but you'd get him in. He still knows where the goal is. He can still score you goals. Assists-wise, Ollie Watkins, I think for me would be the ready-made. If you're looking for me, Sesko makes more sense because he's younger, fits into that Ineos mould, what they're trying to do. There'll be value there. 22 to 23. It brings you that youth. Yes, you're taking a risk, but I think when you're looking at making a statement, Sesko would be that statement signing. He's the best of the rest, I think. And I think we need to go and get... I think it's a must. I think we need to make this happen. I've always said this, and I'm sure that I said this a couple of weeks ago, is that I can see Sesko in a Newcastle shirt. Newcastle are now going all in for Sesko. Once Sesko, if he goes to Newcastle, then that's it. I can see a situation whereby we were forced for Watkins, and I don't know if they sell. And then my greatest fear about Dominic Calvert-Lewin could come to fruition. I think we need, as a fan base, get in tweets, get on to them, because as much as they may not listen, they still monitor social media. I think it's really important for us to get on them, get at it, and get them on board. We need a striker. We need another body at least in there. I think we need two at this point in time. We're too close to the start of the season. We can't get it done. I think Rasmus stays now. Rasmus stays, OB, and right now, I think we need a Sesko. I think we need to go all out and get that deal done. As I say, if Newcastle, I think, get this deal done, then I'm concerned about where we go for a striker. I can see Calvert-Lewin, Vardy, Vlahovic, I don't know now if he's been set free. And if we are waiting to sell, so some news in terms of other players. So Garnacho wants to go to Chelsea. I think this is where we're at with that. We need to sell him. I think Chelsea are looking at him. I don't know if Chelsea have said to him, look, wait till the end of the window. Garnacho, I think, is playing a dangerous game. I think he's holding on because he wants his price to drop so he can get that move. Another mercenary move, that doesn't care about the club. I think he should go to Aston Villa. I think Villa would suit him really, really well, and I think he would get into that Argentinian squad, because where's he going to play? If he goes to Chelsea, in my opinion, where's he going to play? There's so many players in front of him. I just don't think he's got a chance. So I don't know. I know why he wants that move. He wants to be in the Champions League. They've got a chance, an outside chance of winning the league. I don't think they have, but I think maybe in his mind, no one else wants him. I think he should go to Villa. I think where Garnacho goes is key to what we do next. Anthony, there's a Saudi agent. Now, Anthony's agent has come out and basically said we've got offers on the table. He's not ruling out a Saudi move. He's not ruling out any sort of of move. And I think we need to keep an eye on that one this week. You know, he wants to get into that Brazil squad. I think what could help us out is this World Cup. You know, don't underestimate that. These players really want to play. And if they want to get into the Argentinian squad, the Brazil squad, they need to move. So Garnacho, I think, he's taking a chance. No pre-season. I, if it wasn't for a World Cup year, I think I'd be a lot more concerned about Garnacho and Anthony, on the basis that I think they would just hold off and try and get lower moves. So Garnacho for me, I think, is the one. And then going back to Sesko, if we don't get Sesko and we allow Newcastle to get him, I think we know where we are. I suspected this for quite some time, is that we don't want to spend big on a striker. In fact, I don't even think we want to spend big at all. I think we're hedging our bets. I think we've got nothing left in the pot. And I think we're preparing. This is our plan. If Garnacho and Anthony stay, I do think they are posturing. Wilcox and co, I think, are posturing, but ultimately they need that money. If they don't, I think plan D, E, F, Z is Calvert-Lewin, Vlahovic, a free striker. Midfield wise, we need more bodies in there. You know, outside of Mainu, Ugarte, Bruno can fit in there. Collier, Casemiro, they can do a job. I think Collier surplus to requirements. I've seen him play a couple of times. I think it's a shame, but I don't think he's for me. I think he's that sort of player whereby, you know, you try and get some money for him. You know, I think he'd be good, you know, for, and this is no disrespect, for what we're trying to be. You know, I think he'll be like a Southampton player, a Leicester player. I can see him doing really well there, but it's definitely not for me. And the goalkeeper situation is Martinez. You know, we're trying to get a loan deal done for him. So Donnarumma apparently is now on the market, so I think we're going to get a load of spin around that. He's apparently not going to sign a new deal, and PSG are going to do a deal to get another keeper. So what's that one? That one may develop, but I think he's going to be too expensive. I think he wants a bigger contract. I mean, he would be the one that I would get if he become available. You know, play for PSG, one of the best keepers in the world. You know, you get him and you're sorted. You know, I think that covers that back four. So I'd love to know where in the chat, if you are watching, stick a like on it. You know, it definitely helps out. The channel is free, just a quick like, and even stick on the bell, just to let you know when we post something new. So this morning, I think for me is one of optimism in terms of Amorin looks like a troubled man. If you look at him on the touchline, he's still not perfect. I'm optimistic that we're definitely going to get a higher quality performance out of these players. I think back 3-5 wise, I think against people like Arsenal, we're not gonna see an all attacking wing backs. I think he's got his home and away formation, which he'll tweak with that back 4-5 against Arsenal. You know, he's going to revert to that back 5. So I think that Mazraoui will come in there on the left or the right. You know, he'll go with that more of a defensive shape against an Arsenal and kind of try to hit them on the counter. But the problem with the counter is you need a striker for that counter, and Rasmus is not it. I think we'll work harder this season. I think Cunha and Mbeumo would definitely give you that work rate. Ahmad will give you that as well. Dorgu down the left, obviously, if that's where he plays. I'm sure you can switch him up on the right. It's just right now it's hearsay. I'd love to be a fly on the wall to figure out, to understand where we go next. We've only got 3.5, 4 weeks to the start of the season, and we're still super light. We're still very, very light in the squad. We need to get rid of some players. I'd even argue that we need to trim the squad even more. This second half team, we don't, other than Maguire, Casemiro, you're forced into keep him because where's he going to go? Collier seems to have broke into that team. Kone, I want to see Kone. I just got a feeling about this kid. I don't necessarily want to break him, play him, but I don't see how Kone could do worse than coming on and start playing those games. Casemiro is Casemiro, other than looking trim. World class Luke Shaw, that's his name for me now. World class Luke Shaw. He doesn't. I just think we need to be careful. I wish I could be more optimistic. I need to be balanced, and my balanced view is that I am optimistic, but still concerned. Gonna quickly check to see if anything comes out. This is what normally happens the moment that I leave. Something tends to break. Fabrizio, what's he saying this morning? You're gonna get all sorts of links this morning to all sorts of plays. You're gonna get the rhetoric now from the club or the Ineos supporters about how we played really well. The squad depth is there. If you watch that game, it's abundantly clear that squad depth is definitely not there. Now, so Donnarumma, apparently he's becoming available now. City, I've just signed James Trafford from Burnley. So I wonder if that gives us a little opening there, because again, I would go all out, look at him, get him in, Sesko in. I would go and spend money on those two positions, and then midfield wise, as much as I wouldn't be happy if you can get some legs in there like Luis on loan. For me, where I would go now is Sesko, Watkins, Luis on loan potentially. I'd go for Martinez, Lemens. I think that's where we're going to go. I think PSG. I don't think they're going to sell him for anything less than 50. So I need to see some action this week. We need to see some action. We need to see some movement. I don't want to. We don't need an excuse. Rasmus is not it. I don't want to see a Gallo signing, a big horse signing. We need to see something. If we're going to go anywhere this season, we need really to be seeing these sorts of players come in. The fact that we haven't yet, and everyone else is doing their business. Yeah, I've seen some arguments whereby we're clutching at straws in terms of hoping that other clubs have signed too many signings and they're going to take a while to gel together. The problem with that is then once they do, they've got that depth and strength. You look at Chelsea now, they've got strength and depth in abundance. Once they find that combination, they're going to be very, very difficult to beat. They've gone on the back of winning the Club World Cup. Man City are going to be there and thereabouts. They've strengthened that team as well. You don't hear anything else now because they're training. Pep's going to get him into his system. They've still got some fantastic players from last season. Liverpool may struggle slightly trying to fit all those players into that team, but once they find their rhythm, they're gonna be there or thereabouts. Newcastle trying to do some business. If they get Sesko, in replace of Isak, then they probably put themselves, there or thereabouts again. Isak, obviously, is a fantastic player, but if they can replace him, if Sesko does what we all think he can do, then they're going to be fine. Again, they've got a better midfield than us, and then we're fighting for the best of the rest. I've seen other outlets, other channels saying, we'll potentially we could be looking at getting sixth at best. But for us to get sixth, we've got to hope that other teams around us fall off, like Aston Villa, the Brightons. We've got to rely on those teams dropping off, and Amorin can do something special with these players, and we've got to hope and be optimistic. And as much as I will support these players, they don't all deserve our trust based on last season, but we have to give them that trust. And as much as I am prepared, because I have to be prepared to be optimistic and supportive, imagine a titan of a club who are striving for best in class, striving apparently to win the title by 2028, and instead of buying players to force being good this season, you rely on optimism. Liverpool are not doing that. Liverpool are optimistic that they might win the Champions League. They're optimistic they might retain the league. City are optimistic that they might win the league, Champions League. But that's secondary. They are trying to win the league. They know they're going to be there or thereabouts. Optimism just comes from the fact that they are so good, and it's a want and need that they're going to be optimistic that they're going to go far, but they bought players to do that. We haven't. We need to be realistic that we've ultimately so far got one player more in this team. In fact, I'd argue that we're probably worse, because when you, irrespective of whether you want these players in your squad, Rashford, the fact he's not here, he didn't play, but he weakens us. Sancho doesn't play, £70 million player, he's not going to play, weakens us. So Garnacho, who did play, and he played quite well in a lot of the games. Nish Fan is in there. Good morning, Nish Fan, and a legend of the chat already. Rasmus is completely pointless at this point. I completely agree with you. I like him. He works hard. I think his attitude is spot on, but he just doesn't have it, and he just doesn't have it. Rasmus yesterday, and you can support him, and you can have a different opinion to me and Nish Fan, and I'm all for that. If you can see something that I can't, I'm more for having that debate, and I'm all for you trying to change my mind on it. But Rasmus, you just know when a striker is good, and but Rasmus is not. The runs he was making, not the runs. The ball doesn't stick to his feet. A striker can make a ball stick to their feet and bring other people into play. Rasmus is running down flanks, running away from goal. There are times when you, as a striker, I played striker for many years, and I'm not saying that I was good, but I for whatever reason, I was always able to score goals. I had pace, and I always knew, and I always played to my strengths. I don't know what Rasmus's strengths are. Is he quick? He looked quick, but is that because West Ham's defenders were off the pace? He's not going to do that against the Saliba. He's not going to do that against some of the defenders at City. Liverpool. He's not going to do that against a Van Dijk. Van Dijk would take a step back, and Rasmus will never get around him. He tries to play on the last man. He can't spin behind, and then when he does have a shot, he snatches at it, and it goes over the bar. He's Rasmus for me, and Nish Fan sums it up. I think he's blunt. He's pointless. He's blunt. He doesn't. The value he adds is a body in there, and he reminds me of Veghorst. At this point, he reminds me of him on the basis that he's a body. Right now, he's a body in there. He's probably the better striker, the best striker that we've got. Obi's too young, we can't overplay Obi. If Obi was 22, maybe I'd say Rasmus needs to be number 2 and stick Obi in. But right now, Obi's too young. We could argue that Xerxes could get up there. Xerxes is not a striker, but if that's what we're going to do next season, Xerxes, Rasmus and Obi, we're going to still struggle for goals. And it's really concerning. We need. I don't know what your views and opinions are in the chat. I'd love to know if you watched the game, if you didn't. And I'd love to know what you're hearing about the game. Are you hearing that, we played really well? Are you kind of starting to hear that spin that, already, for example, let me give you an example. I saw it this morning, I think it was in the Daily Mail or the Daily Fowl, and I don't go on this, but as a mouthpiece for certain clubs, and what did it say? Let me have a little look. What did it say? It might have moved down the pecking order now. But it's basically how United look better. Rasmus looks good, and it was a much better performance. And we're now looking good. And at the time, I think it's really important to support the team and be positive. And you take it game on game. But if that's what we're gonna get this season, this is what I got, and this is what I got from the game, and you can get my opinions in here. Is when we're playing against teams we're going to attack, we're going to revert that back 5 into 2 wing backs, and we're going to look to overload the opponents. We don't have a striker up front who can put the ball in the back of the net, so the goals are going to come from those number 10s, potentially those Amads. Dorgu down that left-hand side. It doesn't look like a goal scorer. No striker up front. And then when we face bigger teams, we're going to cower back and actually revert to, or we may even start the game with left and right back. So we're going to play a back 5. Those are the 2 tactics that I can see. Wing backs trying to overload, or against bigger teams, or when we need to defend, we're going to revert to that left and right back. And I'm not up for that. I don't see the system. I don't see the system yet. Ishfan, one thing I'm confident about is that we aren't signing anyone else this window based on presser and spin after the game. Nishfan, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it. We got all the. This is what this club is good at. Optimism, because Mbeumo took ages to sign. Okay. We need stories to block us away, so we're going to sign this player, Sesko, the Yokerezes, the Rioses, It's a bit like United are a bit like this. When you're talking around your house and you've got an Alexa, you suddenly start getting things on your phone that you've been talking about, even though you've not searched for them. You're still going to get these things because Alexa picks it up and your phone picks it up. And this is what United do. They may not listen, but they pick up little bits and pieces from the fan base, and then they suddenly think, oh, let's put a story out because our fan base like a Rios, or they like a Sesko, or they like a Ekitike, or they like whatever else, and they let that be known to the media just to spin us around and throw us off the scent. And then nothing happens because ultimately it's all just spin. And Ishvan says, I think you're spot on about the tactics. He knows he's not going to get a Watkins or a Sesko. And I think, again, agreed. Without that striker, how can he play his system? I don't think we're going to get a Sesko. I demand a Sesko. I demand a Watkins. I demand a centre midfield. I demand a keeper. But after that's been, we all knew that this was going to happen. The moment that we played well, we knew the spin was coming. We knew the spin was coming. Ornstein, people are going to miss this. People will miss this. There's two things here that I haven't missed. Romano come out and basically was saying that we're talking internally. He didn't come out with any names. We're talking internally, and he's been told, can you imagine if we hadn't scored last night? Scoring last night for me, Fernandes again. And the thing about Fernandes that I'm going to celebrate the goals. I'm going to celebrate. You can't take anything away from him. But it's still Fernandes scoring the goals. Ultimately, when you look at the goals we scored, a penalty and a shot from outside the box. The shot outside the box. Like, where was the runs into the box? Where was the goals from getting inside the box? Where were the goals from across? Where were the goals from a 1-2? You know, the Ugarte to Ahmad was offside, but where were those sorts of chances? Those are the sorts of goals I want to see. I want to see Højlund running into the box and scoring from 6 yards out. Those are the goals I want to see. You know, as much as you can score a weldy, but we're not getting in the box. I want to see those easy goals. I want to see a teamwork goal, but we're still not seeing that. And that for me is Ishvan. He says it there. We're gonna spin that. We're gonna spin it, so we don't need to sign players. You know, I've already seen Rasmus played really, really well. You know, unlucky not to get his goal. Yeah, but if you don't watch the performance and you don't look at what he did and everything he doesn't do, and that hampers the way that we play, Amorin's right. Amorin is right. He's already called it, and whether you're Amorin in or out, he's already called it. Okay, and people are talking about change and how he needs to adapt. I think he's adapted already. Okay, his tactics are when attacking or lesser teams, we're going to play wing backs. Against harder teams, we're going to go to a back five, and those are his tactics. And I don't even blame him. I don't even blame him for that, because he has to have a limited system based on the limited players. Cunha's, I don't class Cunha in that. You know, you look at what he does. I don't class Ahmed in that. There's certain players in that system I don't, but you got to look at the basic players, and he has to tailor his system to make it a basic for them to understand, because he knows he's going to get through a season. And he's right, we're going to suffer. We are going to suffer, and he knows this already. Hence, that's why he's preparing the families. If we need to be looking, and we're right there, they're going to spin it. They are going to gaslight, and that's a really, really fantastic word. They're going to gaslight the fan base. But if you look at that game, it's abundantly clear now what it is that they're going to do. When you got Amorin coming out and saying that we're going to suffer, and if you watch that game and what it is that we were trying to do, you can clearly see that. Fabricio now is coming out and saying that we're having discussions, you know, and targets are being discussed. Nothing concrete, nothing really, really happening. And if you listen to Ornstein as well, and people are missing this, people will miss this completely. Ornstein coming out and saying, "Oh, you know, we're doing well," and don't misinterpret. Ornstein's getting stuff from the club. David Ornstein, as good as he is, and he is, he still needs to toe the party line. If he's getting stuff from the club are going to put stuff out through him. And he's already said that the club think that we're doing okay and we're doing well. And the signings we don't get now will get the next window. And we never do transfers in the January window. So we're already being spun. And now this spin is going to continue. I guarantee Brian ends up as number 9. Round pegs in square holes again. When we brought him into 10. Exactly. I think you're spot on. I think you're absolutely spot on. It's what is abundantly clear now is what we suspected all along. There is no money there. And Amorin's gone for versatile players because he knows he's not going to get the players that he needs. So he knows he needs versatile players in multiple positions. So I think that's right. I think Mbeumo ends up as a number 9. Xerxes in that number 9. So those number 10s. Cunha, I don't think, because I think he needs them in that sort of, not box to box, but he is that sort of opponent's half, chasing players down, getting that ball and starting play off. But I do think we're going to have that Rasmus, Xerxes, Mbeumo as a front, as striking options. Fernandes, again, he can play in that number 10. Ahmad can play in that number 10 as well. Bruno can also kind of play in that number 8. So I wouldn't be surprised if all we end up doing is a goalkeeper. With the spin coming out from the club, this is what Amorin is focusing on, versatile players. If you look through that squad right now, and the players he's picking in that first team squad, particularly in that front line, they are versatile players. Ahmad can play in that right wing back. He can't, but he possibly can. If not, and you can see as well, right? So Mazraoui, when he wants to go for a defender, so I guarantee Arsenal, you'll have Mazraoui on the right, Euro, Delict, maybe Maguire gets in there as well. On the left-hand side, maybe a Dorgu, I don't know, but it depends. I think that left-hand side is open. And then Ugarte, maybe Fernandes, but Mainu, I think, in there. And then he'll play Cunha, Fernandes, and I think Mbeumo up front. And if you see that, then you know that's what he's going to do. And if you look at all those players, Cunha, Mbeumo, Fernandes, Mainu, Ahmad, Xerxes, they are all can play multiple positions. And as Niche Fan says there, round pegs in square holes. And you're going to get loads of, and right now I think you're going to get loads of, and I hope I'm wrong on this one. I do hope I'm wrong, because if we get a striker, fantastic. It means that I'm wrong and I'm happy. But you're going to get loads of YouTubers now and whatever else, and there are a couple out there. They're going to be slightly mouthpieces for the club, and they're going to say, "Oh, we're going to get a striker and we're going to do this." How? Right now, I don't see how, unless we can sell some players. Where do we get the money from to get these signings in now? And even if Sesko came in today, how do we get him up to speed? So I can see us right now just getting a goalkeeper. Centre midfield, striker, I don't know. Amorin, I think, will demand players, but I think we need to be prepared for no more players coming in. If I get a striker, I mean, exactly, Niche Fan. I think that I think we demand. Okay, I demand a new striker. I demand a centre midfielder, and I demand a keeper. Bare minimum. We need more than that. but bare minimum, that is what I'm demanding from this club. This is what I'm saying that we should do, and I'm expecting us to do. I expect us to go out and get a new striker. Based on that game last night and based on the Leeds game, I demand a new striker, and that's what I expect us to do. That's what I expect a club of our size to do. Whether we do it or not remains to be seen. And I'm not confident. I'm not confident based on the noises, based already, and people are going to miss this, and I'm going to keep banging on about it. That Ornstein update for me was a big update, really, really big. You know, those noises already tempering the fan base. You've got the spin this morning, like even some of the channels. Amazing Fernandes, like he wasn't, like Bruno Fernandes wasn't amazing, like. He gave the ball away a lot. I found him very indisciplined. You know, I didn't think he was great, but he scored 2 goals. You know, and he's gonna keep doing that all season. And he's gonna play. He's gonna be, and it was just there was one point where he gave the ball away and he started pointing and screaming at like other players, and I'm just like. Who's pointing and screaming at you? You know, Rasmus wasn't demanding the ball. Amazing Fernandes, spin. And that's exactly it. Like, don't get me wrong, he scored 2 goals. Like, the second goal was a great finish. But other than that, it was a couple of things. He did like a Rabona pass thing, right? And they were all saying, "Oh, what an amazing pass! I can't believe he hit it so hard." But where's the product? Like, there is no product. Like, that's great, but who is it to? And he's just so lackadaisical. I just find him so frustrating. And you know, goals win games, and great if you beat Arsenal and he scores 2 goals, but he doesn't play well. I'm gonna say he's not playing well. I've always said this about him. He's a stat padder. He's the one that takes shots. He's the one that and just because you take shots doesn't mean you're a great player. Fernandes is a stat padder. His stats, you can't deny the eye test. Well, the same as I cannot stop Fernandes fans saying if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't score goals. These are facts. These are facts. But no way was Fernandes amazing yesterday. I would not have that. He was not amazing. Cunha was better. The little things that Cunha did, he'd lose the ball and fight and win that ball back. That for me is more important than a 50-yard pass. That's more important than you trying to shoot from 25 yards. You know, those things that players appreciate, those little things that he does. You know, Mainu winning the ball back. You know, having that ball close to his feet, looking to bring people into the game. You know, keeping the passes short, keeping the ball, moving that ball. You know, keeping possession. You know, Mainu does that so well. You know. Whereas Fernandes gets that ball and wants to do like a Hollywood ball and wants to shoot and he's not playing for that team. You can in my opinion, you can see those players first 65 minutes we're trying to play like a team, but the moment you get it to Fernandes, he's trying these little outside of the boot passes, trying to do a 60-yard balls, trying to do a Travella, Rabona, trying to shoot from 25 yards. But that's our captain. That's not team play. And Cunha for me epitomises what we were trying to do, and he's fighting for the team, and he was winning that ball back. And yeah, Cunha was all over the park. But he wasn't headless. He was he had a mission and an aim. And when he won that ball back, he got the ball back, and he was then, what can I now do with this ball? I don't necessarily want to smash a 60-yard ball. I want to try and probe and get into the box. Fernandes doesn't do that. he looks for the little chip over, or he looks for the outside of the boot pass, or he looks to shoot. And it's the same old Fernandes. And this is what we do. This is what the club want us to do. They want us to argue about players. That's what they want to do. They want us to argue about players until the window ends and go, well, we tried for Sesko. We tried for these players. They just didn't want to come to the club because we're not in the Champions League. I just don't think that. I think they think that we can get mid-table in the Premier League, and they're happy with that. I don't see the ambition. I don't see the ambition. I think Ruben is right. I think we're going to suffer. I think he knows he doesn't have the personnel. I think it's obvious. The problem is that because it's on so late, people won't watch the match, and they'll just and they'll see the win, and they'll see the hype, and that'll be it. They'll just be all over this result. They'll there are certain players that played extremely well, but they won't acknowledge the game because they haven't actually watched the game. And this is the problem that we're going to have now. So this pre-season tour, again, there's a game. Again, I'll cover that game. I'll watch that game again. But the thing is that we definitely need to watch that spin. It's going to happen. So I can't believe we've been going for an hour again. I'm going to leave it there. I just. One thing I implore you to do is watch the spin. I'm going to keep an eye on it today, and if anything does break, I will jump back on board and let you know if anything does change. But just watch out for that spin today, and yeah. So thank you for those who watched. Niche fan in the chat. Always a pleasure to have you in the chat, my friend. Fantastic. I think that I'll add you as a moderator, my friend. Add you in there, buddy. Thank you so much for being in the chat. I also ever got a skint billionaire. Sir Jim is going around trying to raise private investment for a new stadium. I saw that. That again, fantastic point there. I saw that as well. Basically, Sebco trying to basically raise funds so we can build a stadium. This is what we've become as a club. We don't have money, and Sir Jim, the billionaire, and the Glazers billionaires who don't want to put money into this club are going around, and that won't be noticed either. That will not be noticed. That will not be picked up by the fans. That we are lack of investment all across the pitch. Lack of investment in the stadium. You go to the stadium, the toilets are leaking when it rains. It is just an absolute disgrace. They've destroyed our home, and now they're trying to beg and borrow and steal and do whatever they can to build the stadium. They've got these plans. They can't even afford to stop building the stadium. They're looking for investment in the stadium. Again, they're gonna, it's gonna happen. They're gonna sell off the stadium. They're gonna sell the stadium rights. This club is gonna have its heart ripped out, and that's not going to be picked up. That just got put there. And now the spin of this win in a pre-season tour is going to overshadow that, and we're in a rough position. We're in a rough position, and we're going into the season on optimism. And yeah, let's see how this develops throughout the week. And no doubt we'll have more of these conversations. So thank you to Niche Fan for being in the chat as always. Intelligent comments as always, my friend. Fantastic. Thank you for being here. Anyone who's watched, thank you for the likes. I really appreciate it for those who've watched. I honestly, I always say this, and I never get bored of saying this because it's true, is that without you guys, this channel means nothing. I love coming on here. I miss it when I don't do a show during the day as well. So, I really love being involved in this chat, and I will say this chat on this channel is the best out there. So thank you for being here today. Of course, my friend. Of course, no worries at all, my buddy. Of course I can. There you go, bud. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, it's fantastic. So thank you, Nishvan, for being in the chat. And if anything does break, hopefully it will, because it needs to, and we demand it. I'll be back on. So have a good rest of your day, whatever you do, and hopefully I'll see you very soon with some more positive news. So have a good one, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.